more Baltimoreans becoming victims as car thefts continue to surge. We're at one of the city impound lots with just how widespread this problem is. One of the former officers from the corrupt gun trace task force may soon be out of prison. Why he's asking to be released early. 3 men sue the city after spending decades behind bars for a wrongful murder conviction. How much the settlement could cost taxpayers.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
It's a crisis that continues here in Baltimore City. Hundreds of cars stolen every week. Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. The massive spike in car thefts this year is stressing police, filling impound lots, and putting Baltimore residents in danger. Our Amy Simpson has been following the car theft crisis, helping us understand just how widespread the problem has become.
To give you a visual of the magnitude of this car theft problem, we're here at a car dealership, which I'm told has about 100 cars for sale at any one time. So let's do some math. With more than 8,500 cars stolen in Baltimore City so far this year, that's like this entire lot getting swiped 85 times.
And take a look at this, a bird's eye view of the Baltimore City impound lot. Hundreds of those stolen cars were towed after they've been recovered by police. Well, Fox 45's Amy Simpson joins us live as she investigates what happens after cars are stolen. Amy, that was an impressive shot that you did with the drone.
Yes, Kai. So Baltimore City declined our request to take a tour of the main impound lot there in East Baltimore. So we sent up our drone to get a bird's eye view from above. And this is just some of what we saw. An absolute graveyard of cars there at the Pulaski lot. Rows and rows of vehicles seen here at the Baltimore City impound lot that's sandwiched between Pulaski Highway and 895 in East Baltimore. According to the city's Department of Transportation, 3,076 vehicles sit inside the impound lot right now. Nearly 20% of them, or 584 of those vehicles, the city says were previously stolen.
And Amy, what's being done about the stolen cars at that impound lot?
So, Mary, Baltimore City's Department of Transportation tells me that anybody who's been victim of car theft will not have to pay any fees or fines associated with this. That would have to be maybe towing fees or storage fees. There at the impound lot. And according to the city, it takes a median of 14 days for owners to get those stolen cars out of impound, adding that they say no appointment is needed to retrieve a stolen vehicle. And in a best case scenario, the city says a stolen car can be released the same day with the correct documentation with them. But some of the car theft victims that we have heard from over the last few months amid this unbelievably alarming surge of car thefts year to date, some of these victims are describing quite an uphill battle to get back on the road. And what some of them have said about their experience with the Baltimore City impound lot, that's still ahead at 5 o'clock. We're live in Baltimore. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy, thank you. If you have a stolen car story or know someone who's been impacted by auto theft, we'd like to hear about it. Scan that QR code you see here on your screen and tell us what happened, or send an email to news@foxbaltimore.com.
Well, a man is in critical condition after a shooting in West Baltimore last night. Happened on North Stricker Street, just blocks from Sandtown Winchester Academy. Police say it happened just before 11 p.m. Anybody with information should contact Baltimore Police. And according to city police, there have been 222 homicides and 522 non-fatal shootings in Baltimore this year. And while these numbers are down from last year, Baltimore is struggling to deal with a rise in youth violence and the dramatic spike, of course, in car thefts, which Amy was just reporting on. The crime crisis becoming one of the key issues shaping Baltimore's upcoming mayoral election.
I mean, we've got to be aggressive in what we do in a way that is not going to harm anybody, but we have to send a message. People have to be accountable.
Tonight, a long-standing state lawmaker is making major waves in Baltimore City's 2024 mayoral race. After throwing his support behind Mayor Brandon Scott during the last election cycle, Delegate Sandy Rosenberg says he's flipping his endorsement to Sheila Dixon.
Sheila Dixon has the record of accomplishment, of responsiveness, and it's my pleasure and my honor to endorse her and work with her for her to be the next mayor of the city of Baltimore.
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor joins us live on Rosenberg's decision to flip and support Sheila Dixon. Rebecca.
Yeah, Kai, today Brandon Scott's loss is Sheila Dixon's gain. This marks the first endorsement from an elected official in this 2024 race, and it's one that comes with significant political pull.
It's my pleasure and honor to be here today to endorse our next mayor, Sheila Dixon.
Today, Delegate Sandy Rosenberg announcing his support for former Mayor Sheila Dixon after previously backing Mayor Brandon Scott back in 2020. Rosenberg citing an efficient and effective working relationship with the city under Dixon's tenure.
You knew that if you had a problem in your community, if my constituents had problems, they would get addressed by our city government.
Collaborations Rosenberg claims have been lacking under the Scott administration.
When my staff calls, it takes too long to get a response. There's no sense of urgency about addressing constituent neighborhood problems.
To name a few in his district, Rosenberg pointing to long-standing traffic congestion and safety concerns along the Falls Road and Northern Parkway intersection, and prolonged postponements for redeveloping the Northwest Park beside Rogers Avenue.
That is the essence of city government, and there's no vision to address the long-term problems as well.
On a broader scale, Rosenberg citing this year's staggering rise in juvenile crime and carjackings. And while homicides are currently down about 17% compared to this time last year, according to a recent Wallet Hub study, Baltimore City's murder rate still graded the 6th worst in the nation.
Quality of life is important. Crime is down, but most people don't feel safe.
This is something, if I was the Scott campaign, I'd be a little worried about today.
Political analyst John Deedy calling Rosenberg's political pull a game changer for Dixon's campaign.
When you have a well-respected delegate who's been in the legislature for a long time saying, based on the situation the city is in, Sheila Dixon is the best person for the job. This is kind of a huge get for her.
The endorsement also coming on the heels of this latest Goucher poll, showing Dixon with a 12-point lead over Scott, and nearly 2/3 of those polled stating this city is headed in the wrong direction. But according to Scott, quote, it's unfortunate Delegate Rosenberg would rather see the city go backwards. Mayor Scott's campaign releasing a statement going on to read in part, quote, Sheila Dixon is right about one thing. Delays in city services span across administrations, especially her own. Now, it's important to note that that Goucher poll also found that between Dixon and Scott, nearly a fourth of voters that were polled said they would prefer another candidate. Reporting live in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. Education is a top issue and concern for Baltimore voters during a crisis in the classroom town hall with political commentator Armstrong Williams. Panelists highlighted the importance of parents getting involved in education and demanding change from lawmakers.
There's never been accountability. There's never been the political will to achieve accountability. The politics isn't there to get to accountability, and most of all, there hasn't been a movement, a parent movement, from the street to Annapolis or City Hall, quite frankly, that demands more accountability. It's a monopoly town politically, and as a result, there's a lot of talk, and talk is cheap, as we know, but when it comes right down to it, these kids have been deprived of their constitutional rights for generations, and nobody cares enough.
You can watch our Your Voice, Your Future Crisis in the Classroom Town Hall tonight at 7 on our FOX baltimore.com, our website. You can also find it on our YouTube channel starting at 7. Just search for Fox Baltimore. You can also catch it this Sunday morning at 1:30 right here on Fox 45, and Sunday, October 29th at 6 p.m. on the CW Baltimore.
You can also join us Tuesday night, October 24th, for a town hall focused on public safety and criminal justice. That starts at 7 o'clock inside the Bilingual Christian Church of Baltimore. Mayoral candidate Sheila Dixon will join a panel of public safety experts to answer your questions about the crime fight in the city. Fox 45 News has reached out to Mayor Brandon Scott, inviting him to participate as well several times, but he hasn't responded. If you can't attend in person, you can watch on FOXbaltimore.com.
And that brings us to our question of the day. What should be the main focus of the next mayor's administration? Crime, education, taxes, transparency, or all of the above? We just opened this poll. You can weigh in right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote.
We have breaking news to report to you. Our camera is live on the scene of a shooting in the Upton neighborhood. It happened around 3 o'clock on Pitcher Street. You can see there's a police presence in that area right now. Crime tape out. Officers do confirm an unidentified male suffered non-life-threatening gunshot wounds. Detectives are now asking anyone who might have information to call Metro Crime Stoppers at 1-866-7-LOCK-UP.
I come to Israel with a single message. You're not alone. You are not alone.
President Biden is in Israel today. He's vowing to stand with the country and provide support in its war against Hamas.
The president saying he is calling on Congress to approve an historic aid package to make sure the Israeli Defense Force is fully armed, and announced $100 million in humanitarian aid to help Palestinians suffering through the conflict.
The president issued a warning to Israel, saying it needs to be careful in its retaliation against Hamas.
Justice must be done. But I caution this: while you feel that rage, don't be consumed by it. After 9/11, we were enraged in the United States. While we sought justice and got justice, we also made mistakes. The vast majority of Palestinians are not Hamas. Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people.
Well, President Biden's trip to the Middle East originally included meeting with Palestinian leaders as well, but those were canceled after a hospital explosion in Gaza. This was the scene just after hundreds of people seeking medical treatment and shelter were killed in the blast. Palestinian officials claim Israel targeted the building. However, Israel and U.S. intelligence agencies say the explosion was the result of a misfired rocket from the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, another Islamic militant group firing rockets at Israel.
According to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, at least 3,400 people have been killed in Gaza. Another 12,000 were hurt in the fighting.
At the UN, the U.S. vetoed a resolution by the United Nations condemning Hamas's attacks against Israel and all violence against civilians. U.S. officials criticized the resolution for not saying anything about Israel's right to self-defense.
A deadly explosion at a hospital in Gaza is sparking outrage over the war with Israel.
It has dramatically altered President Biden's trip to the Middle East and provoked more violence and fears of a new level of U.S. involvement. Sinclair's chief political correspondent, Scott Thuman, who has reported extensively from the region in the past, has this update.
Fury outside the U.S. Embassy in Lebanon. Much of the Arab world enraged by America's backing Israel in this war, and chants of death to Israel, accompanied by death to America. Now, after Arab leaders snubbed President Biden by canceling overseas meetings, there are elevated fears of a possible second massive front. Not only the original attack by Hamas to the south, but potentially from the north as well, by the terror group Hezbollah, based inside of Lebanon.
Yes, it is concerning because we find ourselves, unfortunately, in a combustible situation where we have armed enemies all around us.
Now, Axios reporting the White House has discussed possibly using military force if Hezbollah joins in the war.
The president said to anybody who's thinking of getting involved in opening additional fronts and making this more of a regional war, he was very clear.
Don't.
And I don't think that that's an empty promise. The United States and other allies, the UK, France, and others have made clear they will not tolerate a situation where there is truly an existential threat to Israel.
2 years ago, for full measure, we were on that border in northern Israel to observe the military patrols that then were taking only occasional rocket fire from Hezbollah.
That said, after what happened a week and a half ago in Gaza, we have to throw out all of our paradigms and the things we thought were true, including Hezbollah is not likely to want to start a big war. Then who knows what can happen? Certainly, Israel needs to be prepared for all contingencies.
Especially if the Lebanese people and Hezbollah militants feel the time is right. In our previous reports from inside Beirut, we witnessed Hezbollah's growing presence years ago and increased anger toward the U.S. and Israel, which could now culminate into something much deadlier. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
A massive settlement for 3 men wrongfully convicted decades ago. We hear directly from members of the Harlem Park Three tonight.
A member of the disgraced gun trace task force requests a compassionate release from prison. We revisit the crimes he committed and hear his argument to be let out.
Another failed vote in Congress. What's stopping Republicans from coming together and naming a new speaker?
And after a nice day in the 60s, it looks like this evening 60s falling into the 50s. Maybe head out to the fire pit if you have a sweater or a light jacket. I'm going to let you know when rain moves in and if it could impact your weekend plans. We're tracking it closely. My Weather Authority forecast.
A live look at Capitol Hill tonight, where the House of Representatives has once again failed to name a new speaker. For a second time, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan comes up short, losing another vote for a new House Speaker. Jordan earned even fewer GOP votes today than he did yesterday. 199 Republican members voted in favor of Jordan, but 22 voted for other Republican lawmakers to take the gavel. Some Republicans now saying it is time to move on from Jordan as a candidate.
Look, it's clear he doesn't have the votes. Obviously, it's up to him if he wants to put it to a third ballot. I think you'll see more folks dropping off on a third ballot, but I don't see the outcome changing here.
All 212 Democrats present voted for House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. It's expected that they will introduce a resolution to empower the current interim speaker, Congressman Patrick McHenry, to take over and address pressing issues like Israel and the budget deadline. Some of Jordan's allies are digging in and saying they won't support that route.
Well, the list of states offering to pay off student loan debt is growing. The reason? Many of these states are desperate for skilled workers. The National Desk, Angela Brown, explains.
We're talking about states with an aging population. Most states have a worker shortage, and they're basically offering this trade-off. Come to work in our state and we'll pay off some of your student loan. The deal is those jobs may be in rural areas or maybe underserved communities. This October report from the Hechinger Report found 42 out of 50 states are now offering some sort of loan repayment or forgiveness for certain fields if college graduates work in their state and stay a while.
States have looked at their population and said, oh, wait a minute, we don't have enough veterinarians. There's 4 or 5 states in the West that are offering to pay your student loans if you come live there and practice for a period of time.
Take Utah. Doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals who work at least 3 years in underserved areas in Utah can get up to $75,000 of their student loans paid off. In South Carolina, if you teach in both a critical subject and a critical geographical area, your loans will be forgiven at 33 1/3% or $5,000 for each full year of teaching. Career specialist Julie Balke has this advice for young people.
You know, what I would tell young people in this situation is, you know, this city in this state might not be the most exciting place, but if you go there for a couple years and you could get a good portion of your debt paid off or your loan forgiven, it's going to be a long-term win for you.
In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
All right, here we go. Looking pretty good as we head through our midweek. Lots of sunshine. Tracking an end-of-week weather maker that could have some implications on the weekend, though. And then following that, another cool down by the second half of the weekend. Even maybe Saturday a bit cooler, but Sunday cooler and into next week as well. Taking a look at the HD radar, you can see out toward Milwaukee, Chicago, there's signs of our next weather maker. There's some rain out there. Until that gets here, nice weather. Temperatures probably close to 70 once again for tomorrow, maybe even a little bit warmer than today. Fair weather high pressure is our main weather maker for the time being. But there's rain, again, with that next system that's across the Midwest. I think that's going to be getting here likely by the end of the week. Potentially a few showers there, and especially for Friday night and into Saturday. Right now, still a little cool feel to things. You were at about 65 now, partly to mostly cloudy skies at 62. Toyota Eastern Harbor Skycam, just absolutely beautiful. Maybe good for a little jog or a little walk after work. You may need a light jacket, though. Winds out of the west-northwest at 7 and our humidity at 46%. So a real fall feel still to things outside. Only upper 50s at Westminster. We've been running cool the past several days. 64 at Cockeysville, 60 at Bel Air, 62 at Elkton. Open windows, or at least crack them open here in Baltimore for the trip home. 62 and 60 degrees. As you head south of Baltimore. Temperatures warming up significantly out to our west. Again, our weather's going to be coming from the west by tomorrow. Temperatures about 5 to 10 degrees warmer than today, or warmer than, I would say, yesterday at the same time. And that warm weather will be coming our way tomorrow. So for tomorrow, warmer. Chance of a few showers arrives as we head into Friday. And then it looks like this same weather maker, the same system, could be with us as we head into the early weekend as well. So out in the tropics, we do have a now 90% chance of tropical development. This big batch of very colorful cloud cover, big batch of thunderstorms here, eventually looking like it could now cross over portions of the Antilles. Could be a tropical storm by the end of today, but then eventually it looks like it heads away from the United States. So forecast heading through this evening, temperatures falling through the 60s on into the 50s. Just a couple of patchy clouds here and there. Overall, pretty nice finish to the day. A little chilly tonight, down into the 40s, crisp. And then for tomorrow, there are those low 70s potentially. Some extra clouds roll in tomorrow night. And then notice what happens here on Friday. Starts off primarily dry with clouds. There's a couple of showers in the morning through the midday, and it looks like especially into Friday night, Saturday. That's when we could see some scattered showers. A little cooler, 67 Ravens game, blustery, 64 and sun. Stays cool for this time of year into early next week.
Jonathan, thank you. A suspected drunk driver gravely injures a Montgomery County police officer. The latest on his condition and the investigation into the crash. What does the future hold for the Baltimore Orioles? Taking a closer look at the team's plans to improve after one of the best seasons it's ever had.
The road through postseason baseball on Fox 45 is sponsored by Johns Hopkins Children's Center.
With the O season now over, all eyes are on the future. As far as young talent goes, most of the club will be back. Then you have a handful of players from the best farm system in all of baseball currently on the cusp, some of whom can always be traded to get big league talent. But their top prospect, Jackson Holliday, that's a guy who's off limits. After what he did in the minors in his first full season, it's not a matter of if he'll make his MLB debut in 2024. It's a matter of when. On 4 different teams, the 19-year-old prodigy hit .323 with 12 home runs and 75 RBIs, with the man in charge of his future taking notice of it all.
He'll be at Major League Spring Training. I mean, he was last year. He didn't have a full season anywhere because he moved so fast, but he hasn't been in AAA terribly long, but he did pretty well. I think when you're 19 and then you're 20, it's 1 year, but that's a lot of aging and physical development. I can't wait to see what he looks like in spring training. Look forward to having him there. He's going to have a chance to make the team.
Birdland definitely feels the same way. 3 Orioles have been named Gold Glove Award finalists for their stellar play in the field this season. Who they are and the positions they play, that's coming up tonight on Sports Unlimited.
Rocco, thank you. And remember, you can still follow the latest postseason action with the Rip and Rock podcast. Rocco and Ryan Ripken break down every playoff matchup with new episodes every Monday. You can stream them anywhere you get your podcasts. And we are your exclusive home for the 2023 World Series. The Fall Classic begins Friday, October 27th. You can catch all the action right here on Fox 45. A member of Baltimore's corrupt gun trace task force petitions for compassionate release, the latest on his request. Their convictions overturned after decades in prison. Today, the city approves a settlement for the Harlem Park 3. Find out how much.
In a city in crisis, a massive settlement approved in the wrongful conviction of 3 men known as the Harlem Park Three.
Baltimore Spending Board approved the nearly $50 million settlement in a decades-old homicide case.
Fox 45's Maxine Stryker joins us live with a closer look at what this means for taxpayers. Maxine?
Kai and Mary, the Harlem Park Three spent a combined 108 years in prison. They literally grew up there, and this could finally mean justice. Each of the 3 men being awarded just about $15 million in this settlement approved today by the Board of Estimates. Now, their case dates back to 1983 for the murder of DeWitt Duckett. He was a 14-year-old shot while walking the hallways of Harlem Park Junior High School. Alfred Chestnut, Ransom Watkins, and Andrew Stewart, known as the Harlem Park Three, were convicted of his murder and sentenced to life. Nearly 3.5 decades later, though, in 2019, then state's attorney Marilyn Mosby reinvestigated the case, and at least 2 of the eyewitnesses recanted their testimony. The Harlem Park Three were released on November 25th of that year after spending 36 years in prison. This was their reaction.
Oh man, I've been always dreaming of this for this day. I've been dreaming of this day.
I hate to put it like this, we went through hell. It wasn't easy. You see us out here, we smiling, we happy that we free, but we got a lot to fix.
Now, in 2020, the 3 men, they filed suit against 2 Baltimore police detectives, claiming then that they had coerced and fabricated witness statements and IDs. Baltimore Police Chief Legal Counsel says because it happened so long ago, it was nearly impossible to corroborate or refute the plaintiff's allegations, and this $48 million settlement today was ultimately the best option for the city. BPD's legal counsel says money was set aside. They knew this was coming. However, the Board of Estimates did express some concern about just how much this was going to cost. We hear from a taxpayer expert coming up in just about a half hour. Reporting live for now in Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Developing right now, Prince George's County Police Sergeant Patrick Kep is fighting for his life after being struck by a suspected drunk driver. Brad Bell from our Sinclair sister station in D.C. joins us live with the latest on Kep's condition and the investigation. Brad?
Yeah, well, first off, this is a Montgomery County Police Sergeant, and we're at Montgomery County Police Headquarters, where just a short time ago we heard from the Chief of Police, and he's describing 2 very different people. The police officer, winner of multiple awards for his efforts to keep the streets safe, and now the 19-year-old charged with attempted murder for hitting the police officer. The chief says he is a notorious street racer, reckless driver who tries to get police to chase him. That's his hobby. Montgomery County Police Sergeant Patrick Kep has been honored multiple times for his commitment to getting drunk drivers off of Montgomery County roads. The 37-year-old has been leading the drunk driving unit. Now he remains hospitalized in critical condition. Chief Marcus Jones revealing Kep has lost the use of both of his legs after being struck on I-270 this morning in what Jones says was an intentional act by a notorious reckless driver. 19-year-old Frederick Raphael Mayorga is now charged with attempted murder. Jones says Mayorga and his green Dodge Challenger are well known to police and Sergeant Kep for deliberately trying to bait officers into pursuits. This morning, Jones says he was spotted doing donuts and racing up and down I-270 at well over 100 miles an hour. And when Kep tried to stop him with a device which punctures tires, Jones claims Mayorga drove straight at the officer.
When you see the intentional reckless behavior of Mr. Mayorga, who in turn literally drove his vehicle, and if you can only imagine a vehicle of that size coming at you at about 100+ miles an hour, Sergeant Kep was willing to put himself in harm's way in order to try to get this guy off the street.
Yeah, and as we said, the sergeant knew who he was trying to stop. We have been going through Mayorga's record, and we found in just this year alone in online records more than 230 separate charges, almost all of them traffic citations. One of those sets of charges scheduled to go to trial next month. Sergeant Kep was the arresting officer in that case. In Gaithersburg, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
Brad, thank you. In Montgomery County for us tonight. Newly obtained video out of Prince George's County shows the assault of a school bus driver. In this video, you can see a man rush onto the bus and lunge at the driver, hitting him as a child screams in the background. The confrontation started when two adults outside the bus accused the driver of speeding. He responded and told them they can check his speed with the school system. From there, the adult outside the bus gets violent, according to police. Bus drivers say incidents like these are not uncommon.
We never know what we're going to run into because kids go home, I don't know what they tell their parents. Parents act younger than them kids, irresponsible. And they come out there and want to fight you instead of trying to be an adult.
A spokesperson for the school system says the driver in this case was following protocol. The incident is under investigation, and that violence against the staff will not be tolerated, according to them. Some new information tonight as former Baltimore police officer Daniel Hersl asked for compassionate release from prison because he's battling terminal cancer. Hersl is one of 8 former members of BPD's corrupt gun trace task force currently in prison. Alexa Asheville joins us in studio with the latest developments in this case. Alexa.
Yes, Mary, Hersl is currently serving an 18-year sentence in a medical prison in Springfield, Missouri. Just yesterday, he filed an emergency motion requesting his sentence be reduced to time served due to his terminal battle with prostate cancer. Former Baltimore police detective Daniel Hersl, who is currently serving the second longest sentence for his role in BPD's corrupt gun trace task force, now requesting compassionate release. In newly obtained court documents, Hersl filed an emergency motion saying he has severe prostate cancer and less than 18 months to live. Hersl, whose case was most recently brought back to light with last year's release of the HBO series We Own This City, has been in custody since 2017. That's when he and 7 other members of the infamous GTTF were federally indicted on charges of racketeering, robbery, extortion, and overtime fraud. At the time, Hersl had been with the department for nearly 20 years, joining the force in the late 90s, then rising to detective and eventually joining BPD's gun trace task force. Here, the former detective during the Freddie Gray unrest back in 2015.
Let's go. Let's go. It's a safety issue, all right? I ain't telling you again. It's a safety issue. My safety is not most important. See you.
During his tenure, Hersl was part of several city settlements of people accusing him of misconduct. He was never charged until the corruption discovered from within the gun trace task force. Hersl was accused of stealing thousands of dollars from people. This body-worn camera footage from 2016, an example of the evidence used against him.
They're involved in stopping people who had not committed crimes and seizing their money, not only seizing their money, but pocketing it.
Hersl's family then calling the charges politically motivated.
Absolute innocence. Absolute.
In 2018, Hersl was found guilty of RICO conspiracy and Hobbs Act robbery and sentenced to 18 years in prison. Hersl now requesting compassionate release. In this document, his attorney writing, in his last months, Mr. Hersl will be able to share in the life of his 16-year-old son. Hersl and his attorney have requested a decision within the next 5 days. We'll keep you posted. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Happening now, a new bill making its way through Anne Arundel County would make sure essential workers have access to housing in the areas where they work. It would require developers to make sure a percentage of rental properties and new home sales are priced affordably. This morning, Fox 45 News talked with Anne Arundel County Executive Stuart Pippin about that plan and the impact it could have on essential workers' lives.
So we know that housing costs are going up much higher, much faster than even inflation, which is high enough, as we know. It's getting tougher and tougher for folks who work in our county to actually live here as well. And our employers are all saying, our businesses are saying, we need a workforce that can afford to live here. So we're talking teachers, we're talking people who work in healthcare, we're talking about our firefighters, folks that we know we need in our county.
Pippin says in some counties, developers have an option to pay a fee to the county instead of reducing the price of housing. In Anne Arundel County, Pittman says if they're building over 20 units, they won't have that option.
A groundbreaking for a new park project in Baltimore County. County leaders, community members, and the Recreation Department officially starting construction on the new Meadow Creek Park in Pikesville. County executive says projects like these are key in strengthening communities and giving children a safe place to go.
We know that too many of our neighbors lack access to parks, and that's why this administration, in partnership with Councilman Patoka and the rest of the county council, has stepped up to add more parks and expand access to healthy green spaces.
Well, officials say the park is a $1.7 million investment in the Pikesville community.
One of the newest ways we are now using artificial intelligence to help detect serious lung problems. I'm Liz Bonus. We share it just ahead.
And the forecast for the afternoon and evening commute, it looks like it proves out pretty nice. You'll need your sunglasses through 5, 6 o'clock and sunset as temperatures fall back through the 60s and 50s by 7. I'll let you know how long it's going to stay dry around here and when the next weather maker moves in, hour by hour, in my Weather Authority forecast.
The prime suspect in the 2005 disappearance of Natalie Holloway has admitted to killing her. 36-year-old Joran Vandersloot was sentenced to 20 years in prison after he pled guilty to charges of extortion and wire fraud. He had been accused of trying to sell information on the location of Holloway's body to her mother, Beth. The judge says that plea deal required him to provide everything he knew about Holloway's disappearance. His sentence will run concurrently with a sentence in Peru, where he was serving 28 years for the 2010 murder of Stephanie Flores. Job-based health care is getting more expensive. Premiums for family health insurance coverage at work soared to an average of nearly $24,000 this year. The average employee's share of the annual premium came out to $6,575. For individual coverage, the average annual premium increased to $8,435, also up 7% from last year. Artificial intelligence now has a new use in medicine. Medical reporter Liz Bonus shares how it's helping to diagnose blood clots in suspected lungs.
Hey there, everybody. We've been using AI in medicine now for improving a diagnosis and improving accuracy in a number of ways. But a new focus could help if you wind up in the emergency room with a pulmonary embolism, or embolus as they're known. If you come into the emergency room when this type of medical emergency is suspected, you would likely immediately be given a CT scan.
So the CT scan is a image that's done with dye that highlights the blood vessels in the lungs. And most blood clots tend to form in the legs for a various number of reasons. But if they break off and travel through the heart and get lodged in the lungs, that's what a pulmonary embolus is.
Once an image is produced by the scan
immediately goes to the cloud where it's evaluated by artificial intelligence.
Dr. Christopher Hayner, a critical care pulmonologist at Ohio's Tri-Health, says if the PE or lung blood clot is found, his response team is alerted through an app.
And through the app, we can review the scan, the vital signs, lab results, and other parameters to determine the severity.
Treatment then can begin right away with the help of medication or a procedure to remove it. Now, if you're wondering if you might need a CT scan or having this problem, here are the warning signs: shortness of breath that appears suddenly, chest pain that can become worse so it feels like sharp, almost like you're having a heart attack, lightheadedness, dizziness, passing out due to a sudden loss of blood pressure, or even a cough that contains blood. If you notice any of these, seek emergency care immediately. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Back to you.
Well, we've got a busy weather pattern that's going to be coming our way, although it doesn't seem so right now. A milder midweek with lots of sunshine. By the weekend, end of the week, yes, there could be another weather maker moving toward us, and that could bring at least the potential of some rain as we head into the first half of the weekend, followed by another cool down. HD radar. See that weather maker, there it is, a line of showers lined up from Milwaukee all the way back down to Kansas City, up to Minneapolis. And that is going to continue moving eastbound and could eventually destroy this nice pattern that we've been seeing. Fair weather high pressure. That is our main weather maker up and down the 95 corridor. There are your showers with that next system. And it looks like ahead of that, we'll see a bit of a warm up. And then with it, we'll see that chance of rain increasing Friday, but especially Friday night and Saturday. Mile 1 Towson Cam right now, you have a couple of clouds that are in the background, partly to mostly cloudy sky. 62 winds out of the west-northwest at 7. Made it 65 this afternoon. Humidity nice and dry at 46%. Some cool numbers. 62 Baltimore. We're at 63 at Cockeysville. 60 at Columbia and Laurel. 63 Stevensville out Kent Island Way. And 59 up at Westminster. Now, temperatures are running just out to our west, about 5 to 10 degrees warmer than they were just 24 hours ago. So ahead of this next system, we are going to see the warmer temperatures, probably pushing 70 or so tomorrow. That's with sunshine. But then on Friday, there it is. The next weather maker does move in with that rain chance increasing, especially in the afternoon. And then we could see some more showers into Saturday, making for a wet first half of the weekend. Down in the tropics, this could be our next tropical storm. Looks like that probably will happen in the next several hours or day or so. A 90% chance of tropical development. That is going to be heading towards the Antilles, so that could be tropical storm conditions for them, heavy rain and wind. And then this thing shoots out off into the open Atlantic. So forecast into this evening, temperatures falling through the 60s back into the 50s, and it looks like just a couple of patchy clouds at worst. We'll go with mostly clear skies overnight. Into early tomorrow, back to jackets, back into the mid-40s. And then for tomorrow afternoon, we'll say a mix of clouds and sun. But look at those temperatures, low 70s. I'm liking that. Maybe some short sleeves out. And then the clouds really do begin to increase, and there's that risk of showers. I think really kind of the morning's fairly dry on Friday, but noontime and beyond, there are some of those spotty showers that do roll through. And I think a little better chance of rain Friday night. Into Saturday, highs cooling to 67 by Saturday afternoon. Ravens game sunny and blustery with highs around 64 Sunday and low to mid 60s into early and middle portions of next week.
Well, new data shows what Marylanders are most afraid of as we get closer to Halloween. According to Google search trends, trypophobia, or the fear of clustered patterns and holes, got the most searches. That's followed by a fear of the ocean, a fear of tight spaces, and a fear of vomiting. For a full list, head to foxbaltimore.com. Well, some of our viewers are getting into the Halloween spirit, as you can see. Take a look on your left. Tiffany sent us this picture of her dogs dressed up as the Powerpuff Girls. We love it, Tiffany. Thank you. And on the right, this is Miss Diamond Gladys getting ready for a boxing match on Halloween. Love that, too. Hey, we'd like to see how you're celebrating Halloween. Make sure to send us your pictures and videos by scanning the QR code on your screen or by heading to foxbaltimore.com/chime in. Coming up at 5 o'clock, leaders in Anne Arundel County look to provide more opportunities for housing. The new bill under the microscope that would put workers closer to jobs. Sites that say they help or they get you help for best insurance rates could also be stealing your information, the risk of using third-party companies to buy insurance. It's a good idea to shop around for car insurance, but it can be time-consuming. Quote comparison sites might seem like the perfect solution. Patrice Sanders takes a closer look at the pitfalls you need to be aware of when using these sites.
Want the best car insurance rates? Experts like Margot Gilman from Consumer Reports will tell you to regularly shop around.
We at CR believe you should price shop for car insurance, ideally once a year.
But that can be easier said than done. After all, it takes a lot of time to enter the same information over and over again. Enter car insurance quote comparison sites, marketed as huge time and money savers, giving users quotes from multiple companies at one time. They do it, but there can be a trade-off.
Some of these sites, why, yes, they'll save you time, will also take and share your personal information. So you need to be careful.
First, check to see if the quote comparison site is licensed to even sell insurance in your state and offer you real quotes. To find out, contact your state's insurance commissioner office.
Reading all the legalese on these pages can make your head spin. So we suggest doing a word search on the page. Look for terms like sell and share.
Also, be prepared for lots of emails, calls, and texts from the insurance companies that provided quotes. And finally, since not all major insurance carriers will show up on quote comparison sites, it's a good idea to get some direct quotes from them as well. Consumer Reports also says it's a good idea to reevaluate your car insurance policy if you're driving less than you used to, paid off your car, or if your children no longer live at home or drive your car. Patrice Sanders, Fox 45 News.
All right, taking a quick look at your weekend forecast as we head into Friday. It looks like that's our next weather maker moving in. Could have some on and off rain perhaps, and that lasts into Saturday morning. I think during the days on Friday and Saturday, the rain is fairly light and scattered. I think Friday night's the best chance of getting some of that rain. And then Sunday is kind of a breezy day, a little on the cool side, and that goes into early next week as well. And if you're thinking of checking out the fall foliage, we have some moderate to high color north and west of the city. We'd like to thank Explore Fall for our fall report this week.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, Fox 45 News follows the trend of car thefts and carjackings across Baltimore. We press city leaders on what it will take to curb those levels. A pro-Israel rally takes place tonight in Baltimore. We continue to follow the conflict in the Middle East and the impact it's having. Alarming new findings when it comes to auto thefts across Baltimore. Fox 45 News demands solutions as residents fall victim time and again.
Mayoral candidate Sheila Dixon getting a campaign endorsement today. We pressed the 2020 hopeful on how she plans to deal with violent crime.
Israel, you're not alone. The United States stands with you.
President Biden's historic trip to Israel, his top priorities in the Middle East, and the big agreement being reached today.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
I mean, we've got to be aggressive in what we do in a way that is not going to harm anybody, but we have to send a message. People have to be accountable.
Baltimore mayoral candidate Sheila Dixon speaking on the key issues she plans to focus on if she gains the title once again in 2024. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. The city is facing a string of issues, including the juvenile crime crisis, some failing city schools, and a surge in car thefts.
Our Amy Simpson has been following the car theft crisis, helping us understand just how widespread the problem has become.
To give you a visual of the magnitude of this car theft problem, we're here at a car dealership, which I'm told has about 100 cars for sale at any one time. So let's do some math. With more than 8,500 cars stolen in Baltimore City so far this year, that's like this entire lot getting swiped 85 times.
And take a look at this, a new bird's eye view of the Baltimore City impound lot, where hundreds of these stolen cars are taken after falling victim to thieves.
Tonight, we have live team coverage, starting with Amy Simpson. She joins us live as she investigates what happens after cars are stolen. Amy?
Mary Kai, Baltimore City declined our request to take a tour of the city's main impound lot, so we sent up our drone to get a view from above. A graveyard of cars. Rows and rows of vehicles seen here at the Baltimore City impound lot. The lot sandwiched between Pulaski Highway and 895 in East Baltimore. This week, our drone seeing some cars in rough shape, evidence of a crash, mangled or missing windows. Others just a shell of what they once were. From the sky, seeing piles of tires and even a few boats. Also watching as more cars were towed in. According to Baltimore City's Department of Transportation, 3,076 vehicles sit inside impound right now, and nearly 20% of them, 584 of those vehicles, previously stolen.
It did take multiple days where I had to take hours off in the middle of the day just to take care of something, whether it be paperwork or going to the impound and waiting in line with the whole Baltimore public that was also waiting for their cars.
In recent months, some of the region's car theft victims sharing the uphill battle to get back on the road. Some speaking about their experience at the Pulaski impound lot.
In the impound, the Baltimore City impound lot, if you do visit it, you'll notice that there's like sections specifically for Hyundais and Kias that were smashed, and I'm just lucky that my vehicle wasn't one of those.
The city tells Fox 45 News it takes a, quote, median of 14 days for owners to get stolen cars out of impound. And to help expedite their release, the city says it lifted all fees associated with car theft, adding no appointment is needed to retrieve a stolen vehicle. And in a, quote, best case scenario, a stolen car can be released same day with the correct documentation.
I mean, there's no reason why your car should be held hostage for 30 days in the impound zone.
But this Baltimore County woman described a weeks-long ordeal, saying she resorted to paying her thieves 2 speeding tickets to free her car from city impound.
To go online and pay it, $80. And now I have to go to jump through hoops to try to get them to give me my $80 back.
And the latest Baltimore police data reveals there's been more than 8,800 cars stolen so far this year in Baltimore City. And at this rate, Baltimore could see more than 10,000 auto thefts before the calendar even reaches December. We're live tonight in Baltimore. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy, thank you. If you have a car stolen story or know somebody who's been impacted by the spike in auto thefts, we want to hear about it. Just scan the QR code on your screen, tell us what happened, or send an email to news@foxbaltimore.com.
Tonight, a long-serving state lawmaker is weighing in on Baltimore City's 2024 mayoral race. After throwing his support behind Mayor Brandon Scott during the last election cycle, today, Delegate Sandy Rosenberg is flipping to challenger Sheila Dixon.
Sheila Dixon has the record of accomplishment, of responsiveness, and it's my pleasure and my honor to endorse her and work with her for her to be the next mayor of the city of Baltimore.
Thanks.
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor joins us live with what caused Rosenberg to change his mind and the impact this will have on Dixon's campaign. Rebecca?
Yeah, Kai, today Brandon Scott's loss is Sheila Dixon's gain. This marks the first endorsement from an elected official in this 2024 race, and it's one that comes with significant political pull. Rosenberg has been a member of the House of Delegates for the past 4 decades. Back in 2020, he used that influence to help Mayor Brandon Scott win the election, but now he's walking that endorsement back, Rosenberg says under former Mayor Sheila Dixon's tenure, her office worked quickly and collaboratively with his. Effective and efficient leadership, Rosenberg says, is lacking under the Scott administration.
When my staff calls, it takes too long to get a response. There's no sense of urgency about addressing constituent neighborhood problems. That is the essence of city government, and there's no vision to address the long-term problems as well.
Now, in response, take a look. Mayor Brandon Scott's campaign has released a statement reading in part, quote, Sheila Dixon is right about one thing. Delays in city services span across administrations, especially her own. It's unfortunate. Delegate Rosenberg would rather see the city go backwards. Now, this new endorsement also comes on the heels of a recent Goucher poll that found that Dixon was leading Mayor Brandon Scott in the polls by 12 points. Reporting live in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. Well, education, another top issue for Baltimore voters during a crisis in the classroom town hall with political commentator Armstrong Williams. Panelists highlighted the importance of parents getting involved in their students' education and demanding change from lawmakers.
There's never been accountability. There's never been the political will to achieve accountability. The politics isn't there to get to accountability, and most of all, there hasn't been a movement, a parent movement, from the street to Annapolis or City Hall, quite frankly, that demands more accountability. It's a monopoly town politically, and as a result, there's a lot of talk, and talk is cheap, as we know, but when it comes right down to it, these kids have been deprived of their constitutional rights for generations, and nobody cares enough.
Well, you can watch our Your Voice, Your Future Crisis in the Classroom Town Hall tonight at 7 on our FOX baltimore.com. You can also find it on our YouTube channel starting at 7. Search for Fox Baltimore. You can catch it this Sunday morning at 1:30 here on Fox 45 and Sunday, October 29th at 6 p.m. on the CW Baltimore.
And you can join us on Tuesday night, October 24th, for a town hall focused on public safety and criminal justice. It starts at 7 inside the Bilingual Christian Church of Baltimore. Mayoral candidate Sheila Dixon will join a panel of public safety experts to answer your questions about the crime fight in Baltimore. Fox 45 News has reached out to Brandon Scott, inviting him to participate several times, but he has yet to respond. If you can't attend in person, you can watch it on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
That brings us to our question of the day. What should be the main focus of the next mayor's administration? Crime, education, taxes, transparency, or all of the above? You can weigh in right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote.
I hate to put it like this, we went through hell. It wasn't easy. You see us out here, we smiling. We're happy that we're free, but we got a lot to fix.
A massive settlement is approved in the wrongful conviction of 3 men known as the Harlem Park Three.
Baltimore Spending Board approved the nearly $50 million settlement in a decades-old homicide case.
Fox 45's Maxine Stryker joins us live with a closer look at what this means for taxpayers. Maxine?
Well, the Harlem Park Three spent a combined 108 years behind bars and are each now being awarded about $15 million in a settlement approved today by the city's Board of Estimates. Now, their case, it dates back to 1983 for the murder of DeWitt Duckett, a 14-year-old who was shot at Harlem Park Junior High School. Alfred Chestnut, Ransom Watkins, and Andrew Stewart were convicted of his murder and sentenced to life in prison. Then in 2019, state's attorney at the time, Marilyn Mosby, reinvestigated the case, and at least 2 of the eyewitnesses recanted their testimony. The Harlem Park Three were released on November 25th of that year after spending 36 years in prison. Now in 2020, the 3 men filed suit against 2 Baltimore police detectives claiming that they had coerced and fabricated witness statements and identifications. Baltimore Police Chief Legal Counsel today saying because it happened so long ago, it was nearly impossible to corroborate or refute the plaintiff's allegations, and this $48 million settlement was ultimately the best option for the city. David Williams with the Taxpayers Protection Alliance says it does come at the expense of taxpayers, though.
Bad and corrupt policing has its consequences with public safety, but also now we see that it has consequences with taxpayers when you see this sort of payout. And that's why the police need to be more responsive and understanding of what happens when you have corruption inside the police department.
Now, the Board of Estimates, they did bring up concerns about the financial risk that this brings to the city. This is the second wrongful conviction case, according to BPD's chief legal counsel, that they've settled. They say 3 are still on active appeal and 1 is still being litigated, meaning that it's likely more settlements are coming down the road. Reporting live in Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Taking a live look at Jerusalem at this hour on the right side of your screen. On the left, President Biden has wrapped up his trip to Israel. He is the first American president to visit Israel in wartime. He is now headed home. Biden met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other Israeli leaders, assuring them the United States remains committed to Israel's defense. Meetings with Arab leaders were canceled after the bombing of a hospital in Gaza Tuesday. Biden says it appears to be a misfire by jihadists and not an airstrike by Israel.
During his trip, the president also announced a deal has been reached to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza through Egypt.
And this as supplies of food, water, medicine, and fuel are dangerously low due to an Israeli embargo amid its military campaign to root out Hamas. The aid is subject to inspections and is only going to civilians, not Hamas.
Let me be clear. If Hamas diverts or steals the assistance, they will have demonstrated once again that they have no concern for the welfare of the Palestinian people. And it will end.
President Biden says the U.S. is working with Egypt, the United Nations, and other partners in the region to get trucks into Gaza as soon as possible. An additional $100 million in humanitarian aid will be delivered to Gaza and the West Bank. Well, still ahead, former President Trump appearing in a New York City courtroom again today. The latest details in his civil fraud case.
House Republicans are no closer to choosing a speaker than they were 2 weeks ago. I'm Atrell Nashar on Capitol Hill with a potential Plan B taking shape if they don't pick a winner, and soon.
And if you're headed to the deck tonight to do some grilling, temperatures falling from the 60s back into the mid to upper 50s as we work our way through the evening. Just a couple of patchy clouds here and there. I'll let you know when our next weather maker moves in with a much better chance of rain and if it could impact your weekend plans in my Weather Authority forecast.
The road through postseason baseball on Fox 45 is sponsored by Johns Hopkins Children's Center.
With the Orioles season now over, all eyes are on the future as far as young talent goes. Most of the club will be back. Then you have a handful of players from the best farm system in baseball currently on the cusp, some of whom can always be traded to get big league talent. But their top prospect, that's Jackson Holliday, he's definitely off limits. After what he did in the minors in his first full season, it's not a matter of if he'll make his MLB debut in 2024. It's a matter of when. On 4 different teams, the 19-year-old prodigy hit .323 with 12 home runs and 75 RBIs, with the man in charge of his future definitely taking notice.
He'll be at Major League Spring Training, and he was last year. He didn't have a full season anywhere because he moved so fast, but he hasn't been in AAA terribly long, but he did pretty well. I think when you're 19 and then you're 20, it's 1 year, but that's a lot of aging and physical development. I can't wait to see what he looks like in spring training. Look forward to having him there. He's going to have a chance to make the team.
3 Orioles have been named Gold Glove Award finalists for their stellar play in the field this season. Who they are and the positions they play, that's coming up tonight on Sports Unlimited. Mary.
Rocco, thank you. Remember, you can still follow the latest postseason action with the Rip and Rock podcast. Rocco and Ryan Ripken break down every playoff matchup with new episodes every Monday. You can stream them anywhere you get your podcast. And we are your exclusive home for the 2023 World Series. The Fall Classic begins Friday, October 27th. You can catch all the action right here on Fox 45.
Well, it's a pretty nice looking midweek that we're underway with temperatures in the mid-60s today, 65 for a high, in fact, with a lot of sunshine actually coming our way for tomorrow. But then we track an end of the week weather maker. Could give us some on and off showers potentially developing for Friday, and then Friday night, maybe even on Saturday, and then another cool down to follow all of that. There is that next weather maker looking kind of patchwork here, if you will, from Minneapolis all the way back to Chicago. Some scattered bands of showers that go all the way down to Wichita in Kansas. This is gradually moving its way eastbound and probably will be in transition to a coastal system by the time it gets here. So we may miss out on the heaviest rain as it kind of reforms off the coast and shoots up toward New England. But we will see at least some shot of showers again towards the end of the week. For now, fair weather, high pressure, very, very nice weather, cool overnight. Another nice day tomorrow, warm temperatures, probably up near 70. Then we track the next weather maker. There it is, Chicago back to St. Louis and the Midwest. That's where the rain is located now, and it will be moving east. 61 currently. Been dropping off late this afternoon, had a high of 65. Some extra clouds have rolled in. Winds out of the northwest at 5 miles an hour. You see some of that gray on the Mile 1000 cam. Humidity 48%, so it is dry. It is crisp up and down the 95 corridor. Even cooler yet up around Westminster at 57, a 59 at Columbia, so light jackets there on the commute home. 57 at Gaithersburg after school activities here in Baltimore, accompanied by nice weather at 61 and 60 on the eastern shore in Chestertown. Now out west of us, temperatures are running about 5 degrees warmer than they were just 24 hours ago. And I think for tomorrow, we'll probably be about 5 degrees warmer than today. And that's ahead of that next system. And you see fair weather, high pressure. That's our latest weather maker. Been providing the really nice weather. Well, that looks like it's going to be dissipating. So one more nice day for tomorrow. And then here comes that rain on Friday. On and off scattered showers, I'd say, developing, especially midday afternoon. Could last as maybe an on and off rain Friday night, and then maybe a stray chance of a shower on Saturday is how it looks now. Out in the tropics, 90% chance of tropical development with this disturbance that actually is going to become likely our next tropical storm. It will recurve, but may hit the Antilles before it does so in the next several days. Temperatures falling from the 60s back into the 50s for that late afternoon, evening commute. Temperatures overnight under mainly clear skies to partly cloudy skies by about 7:30 a.m. Well down into the 40s. Could see a few patchy clouds, mix of clouds and sun for tomorrow. High temperatures close to 70. And then working our way into Friday, that's when that next risk of rain moves in. You see that kind of coastal aspect to the system with some heavier rain out towards the Delmarva in the morning. But by the midday, we get some of our showers kind of spraying back that go into the early afternoon hours. And then it looks like as we head into Saturday, there could be a spot shower. I think most of the rain with this thing comes Friday night into the wee hours of Saturday morning. Then it's blustery cool in time for the Ravens game, and it stays at or below average all the way well into next week.
Jonathan, thank you. Still ahead tonight, the House remains without a speaker 15 days after Kevin McCarthy was removed. Why some are hesitant to support Congressman Jim Jordan.
I'm Christine Frizzell with a closer look at the fog of war, how the messages, whether true or false, can be consequential to all parties involved.
Taking a live look at our nation's capital tonight, the House of Representatives still does not have a speaker. Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan lost even more support on a second ballot and decided against holding a third ballot tonight. National correspondent Audra Elnishar reports from Capitol Hill on where Congress goes from here.
Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan not backing down from his bid to be the next Speaker of the House, also not backing down his detractors. And as of Wednesday afternoon, there were 22 of them.
A speaker has not been elected.
15 days after now former Speaker Kevin McCarthy was removed from his leadership position, Republicans are no closer to choosing his replacement. In some ways, they appear farther from it.
Bacon.
McCarthy. 8 Republicans voted to oust McCarthy. Almost 3 times as many objected to Jordan. Even some who are voting for Jordan are not enthusiastic.
I mean, obviously I have some real disagreements with Speaker or candidate Jordan, but ultimately we have to get back to governing. And if he can't win and he can't get the votes, we need to move on to the next candidate and find someone who can be the Speaker.
A potential Plan B gaining some traction. Give temporary Speaker Patrick McHenry more authority so the House can do more than elect a speaker, like pass funds for Israel, Ukraine, the southern border, and decide how to keep the government funded after the November 17th deadline. With so much Republican opposition to that, especially from Jordan's backers, it would take Democratic support to pass.
Jeffries.
Weighing on every lawmaker is the toll this gridlock is taking on the House's ability to function.
I do think in a big tent party like the Republican Party, it's healthy to have disagreements, but
but there's a point at which, like, the disagreement becomes dysfunction and paralysis.
Which could continue Thursday when the House is expected to hold yet another vote. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atrell Nishar reporting.
Well, former President Trump is in a New York courtroom again today for the civil fraud trial against his business. The judge has already ruled that Trump and his company engaged in years of fraud. The remaining claims could end the Trump empire in New York City.
And it's a disgrace that this case was brought. It's election interference. That's what they're doing, because I'm here instead of been campaigning.
The prosecution's star witness, former Trump fixer Michael Cohen, is expected to testify next week. Trump says he'll testify later in the trial. Well, coming up after the break, a new bill introduced in Anne Arundel County aimed at providing more housing. Fox 45 News speaks with the county executive on how it would work going forward.
I'm Kayla Gaskins. Coming up, we take a look at some of the biggest donors to elite universities who are pulling their support over the administration's response to the Hamas attacks on Israel.
New information tonight as a former Baltimore police officer, Daniel Herschel, asked for compassionate release from prison because he's battling terminal cancer.
Herschel is one of 8 former members of BPD's corrupt gun trace task force currently in prison.
Alexa Ashwell joins us with the latest developments. Alexa.
Kai Mary Herschel is currently serving an 18-year sentence in a medical prison in Springfield, Missouri. Just yesterday, he filed an emergency motion requesting his sentence be reduced to time served due to his terminal battle with prostate cancer.
Former Baltimore police detective Daniel Herschel, who is currently serving the second longest sentence for his role in BPD's corrupt gun trace task force, now requesting compassionate release. In newly obtained court documents, Herschel filed an emergency motion saying he has severe prostate cancer and less than 18 months to live. Herschel, whose case was most recently brought back to light with last year's release of the HBO series We Own This City, has been in custody since 2017. That's when he and 7 other members of the infamous GTTF were federally indicted on charges of racketeering, robbery, extortion, and overtime fraud. At the time, Herschel had been with the department for nearly 20 years, joining the force in the late 90s, then rising to detective and eventually joining BPD's Gun Trace Task Force. Here, the former detective during the Freddie Gray unrest back in 2015.
Let's go. Let's go. It's a safety issue, all right? I ain't telling you again. It's a safety issue. My safety is not most important. See you.
During his tenure, Herschel was part of several city settlements of people accusing him of misconduct. He was never charged until the corruption discovered from within the Gun Trace Task Force. Herschel was accused of stealing thousands of dollars from people. This body-worn camera footage from 2016, an example of the evidence used against him.
Involved in stopping people who had not committed crimes and seizing their money, not only seizing their money, but pocketing it.
Herschel's family then calling the charges politically motivated.
Absolute innocence. Absolute.
In 2018, Herschel was found guilty of RICO conspiracy and Hobbs Act robbery and sentenced to 18 years in prison. Herschel now requesting compassionate release. In this document, his attorney writing, in his last months, Mr. Herschel will be able to share in the life of his 16-year-old son.
Herschel and his attorney have requested a decision within the next 5 days. We'll keep you posted. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Turning to counties under pressure, affordable housing in Anne Arundel County is on the minds of leaders. Today on Fox 45 Morning News, we spoke to the county executive about a proposed bill and how that could play out. Here's Fox 45's Patrice Sanders.
A new bill making its way through Anne Arundel County would make sure that essential workers have access to housing in the areas where they work. It would require developers to make sure a percentage of rental properties and new home sales are priced affordably.
So we know that housing costs are going up much higher, much faster than even inflation, which is high enough, as we know. It's getting tougher and tougher for folks who work in our county to actually live here as well. And our employers are all saying, our businesses are saying, we need a workforce that can afford to live here. So we're talking teachers, we're talking people who work in healthcare, we're talking about our firefighters, folks that we know we need in our county. It is based on income, yeah. So for rental units, this requires, just for new development, not existing units, but for new development, that 15% of those units be affordable for folks at 75% of median income. It's about in the low $60,000. So it brings the rent down a little bit for that 15% of units.
He says in some counties, developers have an option to pay a fee to the county instead of reducing the price of housing. But in Anne Arundel County, Pittman says if they're building over 20 units, they don't have that option. They have to make a percentage of the homes available at the reduced cost. Patrice Sanders, Fox 45 News.
Well, tonight, President Biden has wrapped up his trip to Israel.
He met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other Israeli leaders, assuring them the United States remains committed to Israel's defense. The president also announced a deal has been reached to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza through Egypt.
And the visit comes as people around the world gather to hold rallies for both sides, including right here in Maryland.
We have extensive team coverage tonight on a local and national level.
Let's begin with Fox 45's Keith Daniels. He is live in Pikesville with a preview of a pro-Israel rally set to happen there tonight. Keith?
Well, Mary and Kai, we're live outside the Beth El congregation here in Park Heights. Now, members of the Jewish community organized this event, but they say all community members are encouraged to attend here as they stand in solidarity with Israel. Now, you may recall last week, hundreds gathered at the Beth Tefillah in support of Israel. Among those gathering was Ofer Sabbath, whose 87-year-old mother lives in Israel. Sabbath recently shared his concerns with us about his mother.
My first reaction was, do you want me to come and be with you? And she said, you can help there more than you can help here. You can tell them to free the captives and put end to the bloodshed.
Well, the service is set to begin here at 7:30. Doors open at 6:45. They say allow time for security. That we see a metal detector set up outside the front of the building. There's a dog and members of SWAT team and Baltimore County Police here. So again, they say allow time to go through security before the program begins. Again, that starts at 7:30. Well, live tonight in Pikesville, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. These types of rallies are taking place across the country. Here's a live look at Washington, D.C., where members with the Jewish community Voices for Peace held a rally outside the National Mall. The group is calling on the Biden administration to press for a ceasefire in Gaza to de-escalate the violence and prevent a further loss of life in the conflict. The members held up signs that read, "No to war, no to apartheid," and held a large banner that read, "Ceasefire."
Well, tonight, the U.S. National Security Council says the blast at a hospital in Gaza does not appear to be caused by Israel. It is a sharp pivot from a narrative that's already spread throughout the globe. National correspondent Christine Frizzell with a closer look at misinformation in a time of war.
No matter who was behind it, the images are gut-wrenching, the tragedy beyond measure. The blast at the El Hali hospital in Gaza, a portrait of the atrocities of war and the fog of war. Israeli Defense Forces denying any involvement and blaming Hamas.
They committed that atrocity. It was their rocket.
That claim now backed up by the U.S. National Security Council and by President Joe Biden.
Data I was shown by my defense commander.
And yet, when it first happened, this headline appeared in the New York Times. The Associated Press reporting hundreds killed in Israeli airstrike on Gaza City Hospital. And Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib posting on X, Israel just bombed the Baptist hospital, killing 500 Palestinians, blaming President Biden for refusing to, quote, facilitate a ceasefire. Already, the incident has sparked protests all around the world. A summit between President Biden and leaders of Egypt, Jordan, and the Palestinian Authority called off. Many on the ground still accusing Israel of lying.
They warned the hospital, the Baptist hospital run by the Anglican Church. They warned them that they should leave and evacuate. And they couldn't do that because they couldn't leave their patients to die. They also destroyed 23 ambulances with their airstrikes.
Experts say the blame game and the muddled messages are as old as the history of war itself.
When looking at messages that you see about information coming from war zones, oftentimes that information is not simply just reporting. That information comes with an agenda.
Professor David Broniatowski says the rapid amplification of all different agendas on social media also plays a role.
It facilitates those quick responses. And oftentimes there is a trade-off between speed and accuracy.
A trade-off now proving consequential in a war some fear is just getting started. I'm Christine Frizzell reporting.
Rallies and protests are taking place on universities across the country. And now another billionaire mega donor announces they're cutting ties with their alma mater. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins continues our story.
As Israel and Hamas wage war in the Middle East, a war of words and support ratcheting up tensions at American universities, where groups of students and even faculty are taking strong anti-Israel stances. George Washington University professor Lara Shihai facing a federal civil rights complaint for allegedly mistreating Jewish students. She also endorsed Hamas following the attacks. Students at Cornell want Professor Russell Rickford fired for applauding Hamas's violence.
It was exhilarating. It was energizing.
A furious group of billionaire donors pulling support, equating administration responses to an embrace of anti-Semitism. UPenn hemorrhaging the biggest donors. Mark Rowan and his wife have given $50 million to the university. The Huntsman family has given more than $50 million since the 1990s. David Baggerman has given $5 million, and the Lauder family of the Estee Lauder beauty empire have given $125 million to the nursing school during the pandemic. The family now re-examining their support. Harvard losing the support of the Wexner Foundation that donated millions to the school. And one of Israel's wealthiest billionaire couples, Idan Ofer and his wife, severing all ties with the university as well. Questions now as to where this anti-Israel sentiment came from. Just the News reporting the Middle Eastern country of Qatar poured more than $1 billion into influencing U.S. education and politics as they allegedly harbored Hamas terrorists. Senator Josh Hawley demanding the DOJ investigate funding of these anti-Israel student groups.
I want to know if they're being funded by terrorists. I mean, these student groups are out there calling for the destruction of Israel. I mean, what is going on American campuses that so many students think that this is okay?
Gallup polling from earlier this year seems to support shifting views, showing younger Democrats are increasingly less sympathetic to Israel. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
Americans looking to get out of Israel will have to reimburse the government for any fees associated with their evacuation. I'm Janae Bowens in Washington with a look at the controversy.
Plus, alarming new video shows just how severe the car theft crisis is across Baltimore. Fox 45 News presses leaders on solutions.
And a crisp overnight coming our way. Temperatures falling through the 50s and into the 40s by early tomorrow morning. But there will be a risk of rain that moves in by the weekend. I'll let you know what the wettest week